You're listening to TheESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, an independent weekly show set out to bring you news, interesting topics, and interviews with people mostly from Europe, building bridges and breaking down language barriers to show the world how active and awesome the skeptical movement is in the region. This is episode 542. I'm your host, Andras Pinter, and joining me for the show is my co-host, Pontus Böckman.
Hejsan! How are you, Anders?
See ya. I'm okay, thanks. Had a bit of a surgery.
What?
Just a couple of days ago.
Oh my god.
You know, it's not very nice. Have you ever had an ingrown toenail?
No, but I know of it.
You know, on the big toe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that is
I've had
painful.
relatives who have had that. Yes, that's not nice at all.
And I've been living with that for months now.
Okay.
And I decided to
cut
have
the
it taken
toe
care of.
off. Just get rid of it. It's done its bit.
Might as well. Who needs that anyway? No stability is needed. I don't walk that much. I'm not walking with tourists all the time or whatever.
All right. Sorry. What happened?
Nothing special. It's just for a couple of days it makes you have to watch your step and try to put it up somewhere high so that it's not recommended to walk a lot with it. It's not recommended to drive with it. But on the other hand, I had to drive. I was just carrying my sister and her family around. I was just down in Szeged and I just came back a couple of hours ago. So Busy as usual. Whenever I'm home, I have to jam everything into those couple of days that I am home. So it's always a busy time. But other than that, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Everything is happy here. I have a wasp nest under my tree deck, which is a problem. And I had a guy here to look at it, and he said, I can't see I can see there's wasps going back and forth, but I can't see exactly where the nest is. Can you please remove some of those boards so I can find it? And I said, I don't want to do that. They will be mad at me. I don't like wasps and they don't like me.
They probably will, yeah.
Yeah, so they're still there. I don't know what to do about it. Anyway, it's not a big nest, I guess, but it's big enough that when we try to eat our dinner outdoors, it becomes a little bit undoable because then they find, food.
Yeah, and once one of them finds the source, it will let the sisters know.
Yeah, that is the way.
Yeah, and the sisters will come in large numbers.
I understand them. I understand them, but I don't like it. Yeah.
Well, it's always a huge dilemma as to what to do with these animals because they have a right to exist, right? So you don't want to eliminate them, but on the other hand, you don't want your life to be massively affected by it.
Yeah, that's right. I got stung last year, so it is a real threat.
No allergic reaction, I hope.
No, I'm not allergic, no, but it hurts like hell. But anyway.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. All right. Well, what else? We are recording on the 29th, so it was yesterday as of the time of this recording. Did you know that there is a commemorative day that is called World Hepatitis Day?
No, I did not know that.
Obviously,
no, I'm not celebrating this.
It's not celebrating hepatitis, because it's it's about viral hepatitis and how hepatitis is the inflammation of the liver, and these couple of different types, A to E, that are currently known and dealt with. These are liver infections that are caused by viruses. Unfortunately, it's still something that needs to be talked about because it still kills hundreds of thousands of people worldwide every year. And some of them, like A and E, spread mostly through contaminated food and water. So sanitation works to prevent them in a way, but there are also vaccines available to prevent them. So this is pretty good. B, C, and D, they are bloodborne. So obviously it's bodily fluids and blood that it spreads through. So it's not as easy to spread, but still very dangerous, some of them. So B and C are responsible for the vast majority of chronic disease, and even liver cancer is linked to them. But the good news is that hepatitis A and B are vaccine preventable. Hepatitis C is now fully curable with modern antivirals. And hepatitis D almost exclusively occurs along with hepatitis B, I believe. And that means that it can be prevented indirectly through the hepatitis B vaccination. So it looks really cool. The problem is that even though Europe has made real progress recently, the hepatitis B infection in young children is close to zero, which is really cool. It's quite an achievement. New infections of both B and C have dropped significantly, and hepatitis C mortality has fallen by a third over the last decade because of its being curable. But we're not on track for elimination, which is the aim of the World Health Organization and the European Union as well. So vaccination coverage for hepatitis B still falls short of WHO targets in most of EU and EEA countries, which is a shame because in most of these countries, testing and treatment rates remain far too low. Only about a quarter of people with hepatitis B are even diagnosed, and only a tiny fraction of those receive treatment. That is really a shortcoming of this, but this is just another reminder that increased vaccine coverage would be the best way to go down. Elimination is absolutely achievable in theory. But unfortunately, we're still not there yet. And unfortunately, hepatitis B and C are a bit of a victim of anti-vaccination sentiment as well. A lot of people don't want them because they don't necessarily live in environments where they think they can come across them. But some of them are hepatitis B, for example, when spread through bodily fluids, that is the one that can be passed on through sexual connection as well.
That's interesting. I'm not sure if I have any vaccination against any kind of hepatitis. Maybe I should check that out. I don't know if I can check that. If that happened, it was a long time ago, and I don't know if there's records about it. I will check with my local medical advisor and see what they say. I think that's good. Go science anyway for trying to beat these things. And speaking about science, for many decades there have been speculations and fears that electromagnetic waves from cell phones could cause cancer and be naughty in other ways as well.
Can't they?
There is no scientific plausibility to this. The energy levels are so low and the penetration into living tissue is very shallow and limited. Still, people have been scared and people have spread misinformation about that. It's like the reverse of the naturalistic fallacy, really. Since electromagnetic waves, from cell phones at least, seem artificial and also are invisible, you can't see them, they must be dangerous. But we haven't seen any reason to believe that. But people also don't trust that there is a difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. And every time there's a technology shift, we go from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G. These fears come back together with conspiracy theories. But it's not like the potential risks haven't been addressed and researched. WHO, you mentioned the World Health Organization before, they commissioned 13 reviews back in 2019 to understand what we already know, really, but what we really still need to find out about any health effects about electromagnetic waves. Unfortunately, after that, nothing seems to have happened. I don't know what they did, because WHO has not yet evaluated the reviews that they ordered. So because of that, 2 researchers who were involved in some of these 13 reviews have taken matters into their own hands and done their own summary of their findings. And what they found in their analysis of 63 different studies published between 1994 and 2022 was that they could not find any association between mobile phone use and brain cancer or cancers of the head or neck. It also didn't matter how much someone used the mobile phone. Some people said that, well, maybe occasional use is fine, but if you do it over a long time, it's very dangerous. They couldn't find anything of that as well. They looked at 10 or more years and nothing. In the same review, they also found that there was no evidence linking radio or television transmission to leukemia in children, which is also something that some of the same people are spreading. So, the bottom line is, the results are not surprising, but they're good, obviously. And I'm sure that no one ever again will claim that 4G or 5G or eventually 6G will pose any risk for humans.
Of course, because this is how things work, right? When people publish a new study that comes out with that conclusion, people just relax and accept the conclusion of the study.
Always.
This is how the world works. Exactly. Exactly.
I
More
wish.
on that later. More on those new studies later. But I believe we have something very exciting to share with you.
Yes, we have gotten our roving reporter back. At least temporarily.
We are speaking of Annika, obviously, whom we had for many years as our third host of the show. What was it, 2 years ago that she left us?
I'm not sure. I think so. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but she still keeps following the show. And as you can hear very soon, she keeps thinking like a host of a show and as a reporter. So she happened to be at Skepticon in Australia, where we were guests in December 2022 as well. And we were very happy to be there. And since the SGU was down under, there were a couple of interviews that she conducted, including some with our good friend, supporter and godfather of the show, Richard Saunders,
Yes.
and the co-author of the title song of the ESP, George Hrab. But he's not famous for producing the opening title for us. He's much more famous for being an outright amazing guy with his own podcast, the Geologic Podcast. And obviously we have to mention Richard Saunders' podcast, The Skeptic Zone, as well. So, without further ado, I think we should listen to what Annika came up with these two amazing guys.
So, hi Richard, we're here at the 42nd Skepticon, which was also a Nauticon. How are you?
Mir geht es gut, danke dir.
So, that was German for I'm good, thank you. Yeah, we're here with the prestigious Ben Spoon Award. It's actually standing right beside us.
Next to us.
Yes.
It's a lovely golden tablespoon, which is the biggest spoon.
Yes.
And it's sitting on 3 layers of little engravings here telling who won for each year.
So what will you do when you run out of space?
You know what? I would normally say would put another layer on, but it's getting too heavy to carry.
True.
It's very big. So what I think we would do is we would say that was the Ben Spoon for the first 50 years. And
create another
maybe
pedestal.
Another one, yes.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's about 44 years we've been giving the Ben Spoon.
So in 6 years we have a very, very lucky Ben Spoon Award winner.
Yeah.
It has to be a special person, probably. So can you tell us who won the Ben Spoon Award 2026 and why?
Yeah, it's a woman in the state of Victoria who says she can get messages from dead people. Now, lots of people say they get messages from dead. It's nothing new, but she won it, I think, because she claims to get messages from dead children, which is really bad, which is an awful thing to claim to do. And not only that, she gets messages from famous celebrities right back into history. And also, one of the things that we thought was quite ridiculous is she uses what they call a spirit box, which is a radio which is rewired so it doesn't stop on frequencies. In other words, on a radio, if you press scan, it looks for things,
Yes.
right? This one doesn't stop looking, and you hear it. So it goes,
Oh, that's perfect.
And every now and then you'll hear a bit of a word. And they say...
That's a message from the dead.
Yeah, who knew
That's perfect.
the dead knew how to use broken radios?
That's amazing.
Amazing.
I mean, if you fish long enough, you will catch something,
Yes, very well put. Because there's a couple of things going on. One is audio pareidolia, and just very quickly, that's when your brain will put random sounds together and look for meaning and patterns. It's like looking at the clouds and seeing a dog. It's the same thing with audio. So you've got that happening, and then you've got something called priming, where if you ask a question, then in the back of your mind, you're sort of listening for something that could sound like the answer, especially if it's a yes or no or something like that. So all those things combined. But yes, I think her name's Dolly Adamson, And I think she was a very worthy winner.
Yeah, that sounds very worthy of the Ben Spoon Award. So, Richard, that already is it. So thank you very much for the interview.
Oh, that was too quick. Oh, no. I was going to tell you everything about my life story, and no, it's all right.
Go for it. The listeners, you have to just stay on and listen to 3 hours of Richard.
You do. Well, we'll cut it very short and say thank you very much. It's so nice to see you again.
Thank you.
And lovely
too.
to see Luna. I haven't seen Luna for a few years. That's very nice.
Yeah.
And if people want to know more about what I do, instead of listening for the next 3 hours, they can listen to the Skeptic Zone podcast.
Yeah, please check that out. That's always worth a listen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So I'm here with George Hrab. George, how did you like the conference so far?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. It's just so lovely. People are so friendly and so appreciative, which I understand. You know, people traveling halfway across the planet, people appreciate it. But I'm always surprised at how much they appreciate it and how much we appreciate being appreciated. It's kind of this lovely little circle of appreciation and happiness and joy. So I could not be happier with how the whole conference has gone, how lovely people have been, how much they seem to have been enjoying all the content, all those sort of varied, fun content.
You said on stage just before how you got into skepticism, but could you maybe break that down in a few sentences for the listeners? Like, how did you get into skepticism?
Sure. When I finished college, I found this book called Why People Believe Weird Things, because on the back of that book, it was endorsed by some entertainers and magicians that I actually liked. I didn't know what skepticism was. I didn't know that word. But once I started reading, I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's totally the thinking process that I like to use, and realized there was this entire community of skeptics and critical thinkers, and that was it. That got me down the road. I started writing songs. One of the first songs I wrote was just called Skeptic, which was just sort of investigating that, and then somehow was found by people in the community that were interested in what I had to do, what I had to say, and I don't know, certain little skills that I have seem to work well with like the SGU and with some other conferences and meetings, and here we are all this time later chatting with each other in Sydney. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. That might be a really classical or cheesy question, but how do you come up with all these like jokes and games and what you do on stage?
Oh my goodness, it's not a romantic answer. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Hopefully you find some little divine spark, and I use that word obviously ironically, but you find some little spark. I think remaining open to possibilities, so that when you're driving to work, when you're going for a walk, when you're exercising, when you're watching something on television, when you listen to a politician talk himself into a corner, maybe you'll hear a phrase, maybe you'll hear a couple of words, or just it'll make you think about something a little bit differently, and you file that away. And when it comes time, I got to do a 45-minute game with the SGU. Oh, wait a minute, I had that thing about syllables that was interesting. I saw this fact about Australian cities are always like, they sound really interesting, and you can mix and match the syllables together. And then you have to go investigate, okay, how many cities are like that, and print things out and do all the work. So it's a combination of sort of inspiration in the moment, the little flash that you sort of really aren't in charge of apart from being open to it. If you can just remember to be curious, remember to stay open to stimulus of all kinds. And then when that stimulus inspires you, then you got to get to work. And the work that's the trudge. But it's worth it, because then you end up, like I said, chatting with Annika and Sydney.
That sounds like a pretty good word of the Sunday, so to say. My last question would be, how can people find you? And is there like either your own project or blog or whatever that you would like to give a shout out to, or is there something else that you would like to give a shout out to?
I'm fortunate in that I never changed my name. For a while I was going to change my name, but my last name is Hrab, H-R-A-B, and that's unique enough that if you Google George Hrab, you'll find my website, which is georgehrab.com. You'll find my podcast, which is geologicpodcast.com. You'll find me on Bandcamp. You'll find my music all over the place. So if you just Google H-R-A-B and George and Skeptic and music, you'll find me. But yeah, georgehrab.com is your best bet.
Yeah, and if I'm into geology, then I can also listen to a podcast, right?
Exactly, yeah. You'll end up there by accident, and hopefully you'll laugh or chuckle for 1 second, and you'll remain there for 15, 18, 20 years like some of my listeners have.
Yeah, like I wanted to look for rocks, and all I got was rock, right?
That's it. Yeah, you want the one kind, and you get the other, But it's a nice mistake. Nice, G-N-E-I-S-S. See, get it? Oh, boo.
Or like the city in Italy.
All right.
Okay, thank you for the interview. Before I butcher my geographic knowledge even more.
Butcher away. It's all fun.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wish we could have been there.
Could have been
with
there,
them.
yes. We have been there, but it was some time ago, unfortunately. We were generously imported. We were imported. We were invited to join. Was it in 2021, 2022?
I think it was December 2022. Yeah.
2022, that sounds right.
After
we
COVID.
had a fantastic time. I would love to come back.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit long, but it was fantastic to have been invited there, and we will always remember that very fondly.
Yeah. Annika has a great advantage. She's married to an Aussie, so that helps. So you can match it with the visit of the family, the distant relatives. So it's pretty cool. We are very happy for Annika to have been there.
And thank you so much for the interviews. And there will be more interviews in later episodes. Yes, we have a bunch of them, but we started with these two.
Yeah. All right. But we do have a regular show with all the regular stuff that we tend to bring our listeners. So why don't we start with the first one? That is TWISH, or This Week in Skeptical History. This week, we celebrate the birthday of one of the 19th century's most influential experimental physicists, John Tyndall, who was born on the 2nd of August, 1820, in a place called, Loxlambridge, I think.
That sounds
Ireland.
Scottish. Is that? Oh, Ireland. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know.
So, please, anyone listening from Ireland, let me know if I managed to butcher that name. But I followed the phonetics transcription as well. So, I'll blame it on them on Wikipedia. Okay. However, John Tyndall, his work not only shaped modern atmospheric science and optics, which is a great achievement in and of itself, but also laid down principles that resonate very strongly with the values of modern scientific skepticism, including the very important principles of secularism. So, he started his studies in England, but later moved to Germany. And the reason for that was that he had hoped there would be better opportunities to do more lab work, because that was his thing. He was a bit of an experimenter, and it worked out pretty well for him, actually. At the University of Marburg, he ended up as an understudy of Robert Bunsen, the person of whom I talked about on episode 525.
Of burner fame, right? Bunsen burner.
Of the burner fame, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and many other things. Listen back on episode 525.
I will, because I have probably
interested.
forgotten. But yes, I remember the burner thing.
And, well, after finishing his studies in the 1850s, Tyndall started to come up with very special experimentations to examine all kinds of things, including diamagnetism, to give just one example. But his most famous achievement came in 1859, when he provided the first clear experimental evidence for what we now call the greenhouse effect.
Oh boy.
And he used a ratio spectrophotometer of his own design, and that was a really cool instrument to measure how different materials absorbed infrared radiation, or any kind of radiation, and they could be compared to each other. And he showed that water vapor and carbon dioxide absorb infrared radiation, which is basically heat radiation. So that's how we come across it as.
Yeah. And sometimes we hear about these discoveries, you secretly wish that they had been wrong. Because what if we didn't have to worry about carbon emissions? But I guess he was right.
And the whole experimental design was absolutely brilliant with his own design of how to measure that. The important thing was that he compared water vapor and carbon dioxide and its capability of absorbing infrared radiation to gases like oxygen and nitrogen that make up most of the air in the atmosphere. And he realized that they do not absorb it, while water vapor and carbon dioxide do. That was a landmark discovery that established that trace gases that these are can actually regulate Earth's temperature, even though they are present in the atmosphere in a very small proportion. Still, they can regulate the temperature of the whole Earth. Today, in an era of climate misinformation, Tyndall's measurements remain a cornerstone of evidence-based climate science. and we still build on it. Well, that's what a cornerstone means. But he also helped explain something far more familiar. And that is, I find it very cool, and especially because I get to explain that a lot when I travel, especially when I travel in places like the Canadian Rockies, where there are beautiful glacially fed lakes. And that is why the sky is blue. Through really meticulous experiments on light scattering, he demonstrated that tiny particles preferentially scatter shorter wavelength of light, a phenomenon that is now known as the Tyndall effect. It's a classic example of how careful observation replaces poetic or mystical explanations with physics, like why is the sky blue and why it turns red later. So something similar happens when you look at glacially fed lakes, as I mentioned, that have a lot of fine rock particles called rock flour in them, and that gives them this amazing blue, green, or emerald color. That is basically the same effect that happens. But this guy was curious beyond imagination. He extended his studies into sterilization, air quality, and basically the whole of environmental science. So he experimented with all kinds of things. He developed early sterilization techniques, investigated airborne contaminants, and even identified London as a heat island. Long before urban climatology became a field. So whether in the lab or on the mountains, where he conducted glacier research with the same empirical rigor, Tyndall insisted on direct observation and measurement. So that is really cool for the age. I mean, in the Victorian era, there were a couple of contemporaries of his who did the same. So people like Darwin come to mind. But his relevance to skepticism goes beyond his experiments. Tyndall was a prominent public advocate for science as the proper authority on the explanation of natural phenomena. In his famous 1874 address to the British Association for the Advancement of Science, he argued that cosmological questions belong to science, not theology. And he was an avid proponent of Darwin's theory of evolution as well, although he didn't engage in debates as vehemently as Thomas Henry Huxley did. But then nobody matches. Yeah, but nobody matches that one's ferociousness when it came to defending Darwin. So there is a reason why he was called Darwin's bulldog. Anyway, Tyndall's 1874 speech caused a bit of an uproar, but it also cemented his role as one of the Victorian era's strongest voices for evidence-based reasoning. And he wasn't just a researcher; he was a gifted communicator. His lectures at the Royal Institution and the Royal Society drew huge crowds, and his books helped popularize physics at a time when public science literacy was still in development, in a way. So, many ways, he was an early model for what we as skeptics strive to do today: make science accessible, engaging, and grounded in evidence. I think that all put together is a good enough reason to mark his birthday on the 2nd of August. Because in retrospect, John Tyndall was indeed what we today call a really cool science communicator, and indeed a skeptic. He replaced speculation with measurement, he challenged unfounded claims, and communicated science clearly to the public. His legacy continues to illuminate both our atmosphere and our thinking.
He gets my vote anyway.
Yeah, he gets mine too. So it's really cool. It's one of those occasions, and I had known some of what I just told you prior to doing a bit of research into his life and achievements. But, well, digging deeper into this made my mind blown. It's like, wow, this guy was amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And he lived up to the age of 73, which gave him enough time to do all that cool stuff. All right, but that means that we are about to move on and find out what's been happening across Europe lately.
As a continuation of my new and incredibly popular segment, Quackery Roundup, I have a new item for you this week. Anders. Okay. Do you own an Oberon machine?
No. Should I?
No, you shouldn't. The Oberon machine is a sophisticated device, at least they say so, produced by the Russian-American, which is an unusual combo, Russian-American company called Oberon Diagnostic. In Scandinavia, the Oberon machine is imported by a company called Frekvensbehandling i Norden AB. There will be a spelling competition, as always. It translates to Frequency Treatment Scandinavia Limited, roughly.
What? The name Oberon? Or
No, the Frekvensbehandling i Norden AB. That means frequency treatment in Scandinavia.
Sorry, I'm going to talk about at some point why it's named after the King of Fairies.
No, because I have no idea, and probably the people who decided they don't seem to have a lot of clues either for anything, so I don't think they have read Shakespeare at all. But and the whole thing is probably from the world of fairy tales, so that might be the connection. Yeah. Yes, from the website, I quote. Oberon is a bioresonance device for humans and animals. It is an instrument used by therapists, well, quote unquote, who practice complementary or alternative medicine to promote health and enhance well-being. Oberon detects and corrects imbalances in the body, whether they are new or have been present for many years. Through a holistic approach and a perspective on the body, the whole person can be brought into balance. End quote.
I need that device.
Yeah, I guess if it keeps you from falling over, I guess it's great to have your body in balance. But interestingly, on the website itself, there's no immediate shop for the machine. So I immediately, of course, went there and wanted to buy something. But there's nothing there you can buy as such, but there are lots of free courses on how to use these machines. But they do sell physical objects as well, according to their publicly available annual report, because as a limited company, you have to publish your finances in Sweden, and also your purpose of the company, etc. And it says there that they have sales of products through their own online store. So you can create an account on the website and log on, but I didn't do that, of course. But if you do that, I strongly suspect that you can see and order the actual hardware. Judging from the courses that they offer, the hardware seems to come in different flavors. The Oberon biofeedback, of course, is there, but let's not forget the very scientifically named Spooky and Spooky 2 devices. They actually call that, apparently. The company and its website is run by a guy called Ola Hedlund, and in an interview with a customer of his, done by a journalist, this was a self-proclaimed therapist. That's not a protected title in Sweden, so take that for what it is. This therapist explains that it was Ola who taught her about the treatment and the software. And the journalist then asks if Ola, is a doctor, medical doctor, and the reply is pretty revealing. Quote, No, neither of us is. If so, you're not allowed to do this kind of thing. End quote. No, you're quite right. Because a real doctor has to follow guidelines and laws and rules and regulations.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And the customers of Ola are not bound by such trivial matters. The journalist tried some undercover work and contacted several of the people offering frequency therapy with his machines. A session is typically around 40 to 200 euros. Many of them also offers remote therapy, which is interesting. You just send them a little piece of your nail, maybe even blood samples. So you're supposed to take your own blood sample in that case, and then mail it to the therapist, and then they do it that way. Some of them don't even require that. You just tell them your social security number and where you're located. Well, there's no issue with integrity here. You just tell them everything about yourself, and then the therapist is doing it remotely. One therapist explains that it's like the machine phones up your body. I have questions. So obviously this is all bonkers. Luckily the journalist had the sense to contact not just these customers or therapists, but also the Swedish skeptics, which I can recommend. It's a good idea. And this was one of the members of our board, Professor Dan Larhammar. Professor, I slipped into Swedish there. Professor Don Lorhammer had to say about frequency therapy. He is a professor of molecular cell biology, so I think he knows what he's talking about. Quote, "The phenomenon has no scientific basis. It is a made-up concept. The only evidence consists of claims made by its practitioners." End quote. Later on, he called it just made-up nonsense. And that is quite right. Don, very well put. Good on him. Good on the journalist to write about this. But boo for frequency therapy. It's just bogus.
Now, there are therapeutic activities in all kinds of fields, and there are those that could well be used as wellness practices, but not necessarily as something truly medical. And I think Kneipp Therapy falls into this category, and there is new evidence to support that. A new critical review of this therapy that is called Kneipp Therapy, and it's basically a 19th century naturopathic system that is still widely promoted across German-speaking Europe, developed by a Bavarian priest, Sebastian Kneipp. Kneipp? I don't know how.
Probably, I think they pronounce the K. I think so.
They do?
Yeah, I think so.
German listeners, you know what you have to do.
Yes. Could be Kneipp as well.
Contact us and let me know how to pronounce it properly. But the method combines 5 pillars: cold water hydrotherapy, exercise, herbal remedies, dietary advice, and general lifestyle regulation. So that's vague enough that you would think that as a wellness advice system, it would work. But the problem is that they promote it as some kind of actual medical therapy. And a scientific foundation, unfortunately, turns out to be surprisingly thin when it comes to medical applications. This systematic review that was published last month in Wiener Klinische Wochenschrift, it set out to evaluate Kneipp medicine as a whole using randomized controlled trials. And after screening 77 records, the authors found only one study that met modern clinical standards out of the 77 of them.
Wow.
That one lone trial was a small feasibility study with around 30 participants, and that was to find out if there are any improvements in mortality, morbidity, or quality of life. And the study offered no reliable evidence for that. The reviewers concluded that Kneipp medicine as a system is essentially untested in rigorous clinical research. And another review published in the British Medical Journal Open in 2023 examined some kind of a Kneipp-style hydrotherapy specifically. It included 20 randomized trials with more than 4,000 participants, covering conditions from chronic venous insufficiency to menopausal symptoms and just general well-being. But out of the 132 comparisons, 46 showed positive effects, 81 showed no difference, and 5 favored the control treatment. Most of these studies suffered from unclear or high risk of bias, inconsistent methods, and poor reporting, including incomplete safety data. So the authors back then, in 2023, concluded that while some results look promising, the evidence is too weak and heterogeneous to draw firm conclusions, and better trials are urgently needed. But if something is that thin in terms of evidence supporting any kind of efficacy to treat whatever kind of medical condition, it should probably just be dropped. Let's use it as a wellness brand, a very lucrative one at that. Whatever, but don't claim that it's medical. So, taken together with the old one, the latest research really paints a clear picture. Its cultural appeal and commercial success doesn't mean that it's proven in any way scientifically. So, the hydrotherapy component shows mixed and methodologically fragile results, and the broader Kneipp system has barely been tested at all. For now, it really sits firmly in the realm of tradition and wellness. So, no evidence-based healthcare.
Let's put it this way. I'm not convinced.
Good. You're skeptical, aren't you?
I'm a bit. Yeah. So, all right. How do we now even begin to cover the recent terrible wildfires in Europe, specifically in France and Spain?
Yeah.
We have, of course, talked about this before, but now we're talking about close to 500,000 people evacuated. The numbers are a bit unclear, but it's well over 300,000. And there are vast areas that have been devastated, environmental disasters, and billions of euros in damage, of course, as well. A Spanish firefighter called Javier Garcia had this to say to AP, the news organization, a few days ago. Quote, "The record-breaking wildfires in Spain are unprecedented. Right now, the priority is to save lives, then homes, and then the forest," end quote. So they're really scrambling now. They have to do some really difficult prioritization there. Of course, saving lives is always the first priority. So far this year, wildfires have destroyed about 1,530 square kilometers in Spain. That's in Spain alone. 6 times more than during the same period in 2025. The fire in Avila is also the largest in the country's history and has consumed about 500 square kilometers, an area 5 times larger than Barcelona, if you want to compare it with something. In France, where even more people have been evacuated than in Spain, especially around Bordeaux, President Macron is calling the wildfires the biggest challenge for France since World War II.
Okay.
And putting apart all the human suffering, if you're concerned for the wine production, Anders, especially around Bordeaux, you have every right to be concerned. Huge areas of old vines that will take decades to replace have gone up in smoke. I guess that's not the biggest problem, but of course it is a huge setback for the local community and the businesses there. Scientifically, the interesting thing is why this is happening. Of course, it is ultimately due to, or made much worse by, anthropogenic climate change. But specifically, what has happened this year is a combination of things, which I think is interesting to look at. First, the areas in Spain and France had an unusually wet winter, which led to an unusually large volume of vegetation. Then there was a very dry spring, converting this vegetation to perfect fuel, right, for fires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And lastly, we've had these constantly recurring heat waves. So you have this dry fuel already on the ground and the perfect conditions to ignite them. And by the way, there has been a wet winter, but these heat waves have pulled all of the moisture out of the ground. So now it's very, very dry.
Yeah.
And this combination has led to something that is very unusual for Europe, the forming of Pyrocumulonimbus. Have you heard of this, Anders? You are a very learned man, so you probably have. And it's very hard to pronounce as well, and I have to say it several times, so please bear with me. A Pyrocumulonimbus cloud formed last week outside Bordeaux. Although this type of fire occurs in Canada and Australia from time to time, it has never before been seen in France, according to a fire and rescue chief called Marc Vermeulen in Gironde. A Pyrocumulonimbus. You just have to live with that. I can't say it. I can't say the P word. But it can form when a forest fire releases an enormous amount of heat. This heat rises like a chimney, and it carries smoke, ash, and water vapor several kilometers up into the atmosphere. At that high altitude, the air then cools down. The water vapor condenses and forms a smoke cloud, a pyrocumulus, which can continue to grow into a massive thundercloud, and that is a pyrocumulonimbus. The rain that forms in that cloud often evaporates even before it reaches the ground, so it doesn't help to put the fire out because it's so hot, so it just evaporates. But the cooled air creates a strong downdraft that can spread in all directions, causing the fire to change direction and spread more quickly in different directions. Then, on top of that, lightning from this thundercloud can also strike several kilometers away from the actual fire and start new fires. So, and we've all seen, I think, most of us, if we look in the news, have seen very dramatic pictures of that in the news lately, especially from Bordeaux when they had this P phenomenon that I can't pronounce. So as we record this is, as you said before, it's Wednesday, 29th of July. There has been lately a small improvement in the wildfires, with some people even being able to return home, if their home is still there, that is. But temperatures in Madrid and Bordeaux are already almost back close to 40 degrees centigrade. And there's an imminent risk that the fires will just pick up again. So this is a big disaster happening, and we can't talk enough about it. And we have to point out when we talk about it that it is partly driven by anthropogenic climate change. And a lot, as we talked about last week, a lot of the news items do not mention that.
Yeah. And as you mentioned briefly, that it was known in places like Australia prior to this, it wasn't really happening in Europe. So in the United States, in Canada, especially British Columbia, there have been massive firestorms, and California in the US. So those have seen a couple of examples of the Pyrocumulonimbus or Cumulonimbus flammagenitus. It is as it's
okay. I should do my Latin instead. That's probably easier.
Yeah, it's because it is born out of flames. So this is what it means. Even though it's a fascinating physical phenomenon.
Yeah, you don't want to be a victim of it, no.
But you don't want to be a victim of it because it's terrible in its consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, extreme weather events, but we have heard of wildfires happening in Scotland. There are still massive wildfires in North America. This is following the similar patterns. And unfortunately, some places in Europe have had to take measures like saving water because there is such a scarcity of it at the moment. Like large rivers like the Danube is at an all-time low.
Yeah, you mentioned the Po River a few episodes ago when you passed the Po River, which was very dry.
Yeah, terrible stuff. And we have to learn how to live with it and how to mitigate all this because it's not going to go away. This is going to get worse. And I don't want to be alarmist and I don't want to be bringing everyone's mood down. So let's move on to the next thing that I'd like to mention. And that is very positive because unfortunately, especially when disasters happen, a lot of stuff starts circulating online, right? All kinds of AI generated or manipulated images circulate. So that is difficult to weed out. This is why it's very important. It's not specifically European, but it's international that Snopes has released a practical guide to help readers identify AI-generated images. I think it's a very timely resource because synthetic visuals continue to circulate widely on social media. The article explains that while AI image generators have become impressively realistic, they still leave behind characteristics flaws. So we are losing the battle. Some battles we can win, but we are losing the war against AI. Yeah, those flaws can still be recognized if you look closely enough. These flaws include anatomical inconsistencies, such as extra or fused fingers of people or animals, unnatural skin textures, distorted ears, asymmetrical facial features sometimes, and Snopes also highlights environmental and compositional errors, like mismatched shadows. Have you ever come across one of those? I recently found one and I was, okay, that looked weird. And then I started looking further, and then I found a couple of other inconsistencies in the texture of the background and stuff like that. A couple of implausible reflections, bit of a warped background, some perspectives that don't align with real-world optics and such. And the guide, which is a really cool one, and obviously we will include the link in the show notes, so do check it out. The guide stresses that contextual clues are just as important as visual ones. Like many viral AI images originate from accounts with minimal history, repetitive posting patterns, or usernames linked to known content farms. Like Snopes encourages checking the original source. Reverse image search, which has been available for ages. You can do that very easily. It takes a bit of skill, but you can do it. And examining metadata when available. Although they note that metadata is often stripped by social platforms, limiting its usefulness. So Facebook does that famously. But the article also reviews how emerging detection tools, such as Google's Synth ID and various AI moderation platforms, there are now available to use as well, which is a bit of a weird situation that you have AI to check on AI, but still
What can you do?
Yeah, it's like a classical form of an evolutionary arms race. You have to use the same tools. So these tools are not yet reliable enough to serve as definite proof, but especially as generative models evolve rapidly and watermarks can be removed or degraded, but still the availability is there. No single indicator is conclusive, but a systematic checklist like anatomical features, lighting features, context, source credibility, and some kind of a tool-based verification, they can significantly reduce the risk of being misled by synthetic visuals. So do check out that list. And I think that is great that they published that.
Very good. This will come in handy in just a few minutes, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Call forward.
Okay. And why don't we move on to that when we find out who's been really wrong lately?
Well, actually, I'll start with a detour. Because this week I had selected David Beckham's supplement company, IM8, as the receiver of the Really Wrong Award. But as can happen while preparing the segment, it was beginning to feel a little bit too familiar. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out that we have already given Mr. Beckham his dues back in December of 2024, when he started the company. This was on episode 456, so just a quick reminder before we move on, for those with poor memory, such as myself. At the end of 2024, David Beckham started a supplement company called IM8. The supposed benefits with good old Golden Balls supplements are neither unique nor beneficial. They cram every kind of conceivable vitamin, mineral, or herb into single pills so that you get quote-unquote everything. Not only is Beck's not the first person to think of that, but it's generally a bad idea as well. If you're not deficient in everything at once, which is very, very unlikely, it is a sure way to overdose on most of the substances, which can not only be useless, but in some cases unhealthy, even dangerous in some cases. And in addition to that, some of these things can sometimes counteract one another or compete for the body's ability to absorb all of this at once. So just keep that in mind. Don't buy Beck's stupid pills. That was old news. So that was just a reminder. We will hand out the award to another party today. And the analysis comes to us from El País, the big Spanish newspaper. And your AI news from before may be very beneficial in this. A huge number of accounts on social media, and Instagram in particular apparently, are spreading nonsense about certain food items in particular, both in Spanish but mostly in English. This is done by videos showing people like Paco, Eduardo, Sofia, Manuel, and these people. And these people are going on about how you can figure out whether a food item is fresh and healthy or not. These videos have millions of views, thousands of likes, and hundreds of comments from people who are worried about their health and their diet. And should I eat this? And how do I check this? Many of the videos, for some reason, are about different types of fish. And if you can tell how they are fresh by doing certain things to it regarding fish, they demonstrate if you put it in water, right? And if it sinks, it's fresh. And if it floats, it's bad. And that's just made up. They also talk about the dangers of pesticides from apples, which of course could be a concern. But the ways to tell a good apple from a bad apple has nothing to do with what they're doing in their videos. And the thing is, these videos look very much like each other. In many cases, the dialogue and the script are absolutely identical, but sometimes it's Paco, and sometimes it's Manuel, and perhaps Sofia doing the same exact action. And it looks very photorealistic, but it's the different person doing it every time. So no one will be surprised to hear that these videos are AI generated. But the new thing is, or at least it was new to me, is that no human is even behind these accounts. Well, I guess someone have started them, but they are functioning on their own. Many of these accounts are driven by what is now called, quote, agentic AI accounts, end quote. An agentic AI account is an AI account that has its own agency, quote unquote, if you can call it that. It's totally independent, AI-generated account that without human intervention or oversight automatically processes these videos, creates them, and then posts them, and then evaluate which videos generate most reactions and clicks, and then try to improve on them to see if the new video can generate even more attention. So it's just a thing to generate a lot of traffic on the internet for no good reasons at all. And they don't know anything about the fish or the apples or whatever. It's just a game to try to get as many clicks and likes as possible, comments. So this way, social media, which of course already is a train wreck in many respects, but it's now being just more and more filled up with totally worthless and mostly incorrect disinformation. It's AI slop, not even there to actively promote a specific agenda, evil or good or anything, even if I'm sure that happens too. But in this case, they just want to produce traffic for its own sake. And the misinformation that they happen to produce in the meanwhile is just a side product. Whatever gets attention wins, and nobody cares, at least no one behind these accounts. So for me at least, new phenomenon of agentic, I don't even know how to pronounce it, agentic AI accounts gets today's award for being really wrong.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that is well deserved. Once again. But that brings us to the end of this week's episode, which means that we are about to say goodbye with a quote.
By the way, that little thing you heard just now, do. That's George Hrab. So
yes, and thank you for that. So this week's quote comes from a book that I am currently listening to as an audiobook, which is a great amount of fun because the author himself narrates the book. And always the author is David Mitchell.
Ooh,
so it's even better because he's an amazing comedian and his attitude towards history is a bit witty. He's very clever about stuff and the humor that he portrays is a lot of fun. And the book is titled Unruly: A History of England's Kings and Queens. And this quote is from the book. Their certainty that they were right is worth remembering because it means there's probably stuff we're certain is right that future ages will correctly judge to be monstrous. The fact that everybody is convinced of something is no guarantee that it isn't evil horseshit.
Is he calling the kings and queens evil horseshit? I like it.
No, some of the things that they did.
Oh, all right. Okay. But anyway, I like it. And it's true. I mean, we cannot take for granted that the point of view that we have now will be the same in a couple of 100 years or even next week because things change. And you should be humble enough to realize that things that you take for granted maybe or probably will be reevaluated in the future.
Yeah, that's right. And that is basically the attitude of David Mitchell's throughout the book. And that I really appreciate because I think it's very well researched, but there is a lot of uncertainty that is really admitted about everything that is talked about.
It's good to be humble.
That is the approach I really appreciate. Yeah, he is a very, very, very humble man, although super smart. And I appreciate that very much. Oh, right. But with that, this is the end of this week's episode. So thank you very much, Pontus.
Thanks a lot.
Many, many thanks to our listeners as well for tuning in. Please keep doing so. And until next week, goodbye.
Hej då!
Vislat. This has been your ESP experience. The show is produced and recorded by TheESP.eu. Join us again next time, but until then, please send your feedback and comments to info@TheESP.eu. We would also love to hear your ideas and suggestions regarding topics, and if you have any skeptical news from any European country, we're always eager to hear about them. If you have an upcoming local event or an organization to promote, please don't hesitate to let us know, as we are more than happy to help. All music in the program was written and performed by Keisha J. Gray and George Hrab and is used with their permission. Please check out our webpage for show notes and archive material at theesp.eu. Follow us on Blue Sky at theesp.bsky.social. Like us on Facebook or support our work on patreon.com/theesp. And don't forget to spread the word by sharing our content with others.
I don't know how you can believe.
Is it 5:42?
Yes, it's the
5:42.
29th this year. That doesn't matter.
Okay, whatever.
I just figured that out. But people also don't trust that there is a difference between ionizing and non-ionizing.
Ionizing, mayonnaising.
A I know it's just gone. A pyrocumulonimbus cloud, and that is a pyrocumulonimbus. Fuck me.